This episode of UDSP is brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial as well as a free audiobook, head on over to audible.com/Gamebreaker.
Gamebreaker TV.
Here we go! Everybody, welcome to episode 26 of Unicorn Duck Shadow Puppet. Charum says I'm peeking, so I'm going to be watching you guys, hopefully to get the audio here right in a nice sweet spot for the show. So bear with me while I try and get that dialed in just right. But today is November 18, 2013. You're watching Gamebreaker. I am not Gary Gannon. I am Mike Shaffnet. Today, Psyblades, Illusions, and Unicorns? The Esper gets re-revealed, as well as some people are kind of hypothetically unhappy. All that and more. But first, you guys know him right here from Unicorn Duck Shadow Puppet, Mr. Farhan Siddiqui.
Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? Pretty well. I got a cool WildStar shirt. Yeah, drop the lower third.
Oh wait, here, let me take down the lower third for you.
Yeah,
so you can show that off.
I know it's a Granoff, which is unfortunate, but hey, WildStar.
WildStar
I got
is
that.
WildStar.
I'm
You gotta
studying
work
my
that
target, right? This is my
How'd
target in
you-
PvP.
How'd you get that?
On res. Good man. Check out Zelda in Exile. Good man.
And joining us as well, Mr. Mark Taylor from Guild Umbra.
What's going on? Lights X in the house.
Yeah. All right. Let's just, you know what? Let's just jump right into it. Everybody's here for some WildStar. I'm ready to talk some WildStar. So, we had the Warrior last week that you guys talked about. Now we're getting the Esper re-reveal. So, again, we can't play the video here because YouTube likes to copyright ban everyone. But we will talk about it here for you guys. So first, my question is, you guys talked about this. What is this? This blob amorphous, crazy, cute, cuddly. I don't even know. Should I kill it? Should I hug it?
Like a cuddly caterpillar.
It looks like it's trying to hug whoever's playing right there.
It does, but at the same time, it looks pretty deadly because it's big and it looks like it could just it hug alone would kill you.
Yeah.
What is this?
Wonderful science fiction biology. There you go. WildStar in a nutshell.
I don't know what that monster or mob is, but one of the cool things to point out is that little sword that you see right there. That's like, I played the Esper for like a hot second at E3, and that's one of its cool, or the class's cool attacks. And without getting or derailing the show, when you think of the Esper, obviously you're thinking of a Clothy, you're thinking of a caster, you're thinking of someone who is going to be trying to stay at range, at distance, and nuke, and be like a glass cannon. But the really awesome thing about this class is that it is a caster, a Clothy. It's all those things, but they can actually fight kind of toe-to-toe DPS up on you. And that little sword, there's like one or maybe three of them, I think. And when you're like close and fighting in melee range, those little swords will come out and they'll form and they'll just sit there and go like left and right. And essentially, basically, you're DPS in melee. So it's a fun class for a lot of different reasons, and that's just one of the things that makes them kind of cool and just completely unique. Now we can go on with the show.
Well, I mean, and even unique, like this monster design, just kind of getting back to this picture, this is pretty unique. I don't think I've seen anything like this. I mean, usually we're used to seeing boars and wolves, not banana caterpillar.
Banana caterpillar.
That's the technical name.
That's an
I actually got in touch with Carbine before the show came on, and its name is chopped off above its head. It's banana caterpillar.
I want a banana caterpillar mount. Right there.
Banana caterpillar hammock.
So what the other thing here is they've also have kind of shown off this unicorn, this flying goat ram thing. They're calling it a unicorn though, right? Or
Here at UDSB, we are clearly at the forefront of unicorn knowledge, and so yeah, that's not a unicorn. Stop calling it a unicorn.
Unicorn,
it's like
one horn, unicorn, one.
What is that?
I'm just saying.
It's a
One,
bicorn.
two. It looks like a ram. It looks like a mountain ram or something, but it's flying.
I think at one point during the live stream they called it a rainbow deer, so that's a little bit better than unicorn. There you go. You get the idea. It's whimsical.
Yeah.
I think he even got corrected during the stream when he called it a unicorn, or like it's a stag or a ram. Like a Harry Potter kind of thing.
All right. Well, anyway, let's kind of talk about the Esper. So, Psy Blades, illusions, healing, light armor, as you said, Mark. You kind of give us your first impressions. It's a unique class. Faran, what do you think about the Esper?
What do I think? So, it's a pretty cool class. I think that it's probably not the class for me, but hey, I mean, like, if you're gonna have, like, I think having the whole. So I mean, like, I can get into it. Do you want me to get into it, like the resource system?
Get into it. It's time for the theory crafting hat. Put your theory crafting hat on.
It's a playstyle thing, right? So here's my thing. You spend a lot of time building up your psi points, which is like their mechanic. The way that they work is that they have builders and then they have like a big finisher. It's sort of like a rogue from World of Warcraft or other systems, except that it's not tied to a target, which is sort of nice. At least it's tied to yourself. So you build them up and then you shoot off your finisher, which is super nice. But then like, okay, so telegraphs. Oh, I missed my finisher. Oops, now I gotta waste another like 40 seconds building up again and then shoot my other finisher. Oops, it got deflected. Okay, spend a little more time. Like it just seems inconsistent and it's not really my playstyle. Now, I think that it would work pretty well with what they showed for the melee range. I think at that range, then okay, you're probably gonna have a little bit easier because you're closer. You don't have as much lead time and everything on your spell, so maybe it'd play a little bit better at that point. And I think like as a like really fragile melee caster, that archetype actually sounds pretty cool. But also WildStar is all about movement, right? And they've shown a lot of their range abilities as sort of stationary. You can't move while you're casting them. So I think it'll be something that'll appeal to a lot of people who want to actually do like the sort of traditional mage. I'm channeling my spell, shooting out. Except now I'm shooting out telepathic swords or whatever into your mind, which sounds cool. But I want something a little bit more mobile. I think that I would lean a little bit more towards what we're going to see next week with the Spellslinger rather than with the Esper.
How does he know? I'm just saying.
Well, what do you think of the Esper?
I don't want. Well, it just kind of based off what you guys are saying here. It kind of. I'm gonna get hate for this. I know. I'm already ready to accept it. But it kind of sounds like the Mesmer class from Guild Wars 2, which isn't bad. It's not meant to be a bad thing.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that because the Mesmer was like a caster, but also had a lot of CC. And this tune, I think, based off of playing it, but also watching it, it looks like the class, and obviously it all depends on the player, is capable of going toe-to-toe and handling itself as long as you play smart. You can't just go charging in. You got to think about the setup of the battle that you're getting ready to do. You got to look at the mobs. You got to look at who's pathing. You got to look at where the group is so that if you attack this mob over here, you don't kind of backpedal or you don't wheel around and then run into the path or run into another pack of mobs, which WildStar is excellent for doing that. You can get in trouble very, very quickly in this game. Trust me from playing it a couple times I did. But the thing is this class is like they call it the warrior the Swiss Army knife, and I don't want to go against Mr. Frost, but I'm saying I don't know how true that is. This class seems like the Swiss Army knife because
the warrior's a Swiss Army knife because they have a Swiss Army knife on their arm.
Oh, okay, but like
they have a literal Swiss Army knife.
But the Esper has DPS if it wants to be. It can be a healer. They've said that. It can buff, right? And it can also do CC. So I mean, that's the total package for if you have a solid group and definitely a solid guild. In which case you're doing either war plots or organized PvP, or you're doing organized in-game or leveling, raids or dungeons or adventures or ship hands or whatever, little instance. I mean, they're going to be what I would call from the military, a force multiplier. You have an Esper in your group, and your group is now going to be that much better enabled to accomplish whatever is at hand, whether it be CCing stuff, whether it be buffing, whether it be healing, whether it just be DPSing. I mean, it's really a well thought out class, and it's pretty fun because the animations are not boring, right? So it's not like, okay, I'm just going to sit at range and I'm going to hit you with a fireball or lightning or whatever traditional caster class you're thinking of. I've seen things where it has like an eagle or whatever that flies through, or it has like the sword things, or it's got like swords that go project. I mean, I've even seen, in the video they had like the little mites or the little arachnids that go and bother you, which are nothing more than a DOT. But instead of just ticking down damage, they've got these little things that are crawling all over them, and they're thinking through it. So they've managed to make the caster class, which I normally detest, awesome and fun and something that I want to play, and I'll definitely have it and all.
What about
I think sorry. I think that their aesthetic is actually pretty cool, and the whole mental swords and everything like that is sort of mesmery. It's just playstyle wise, I think that they've said that some of the abilities that are longer range are going to be stationary cast rather than being like I think that if it was in melee range, then I would enjoy it a lot more, just because there is a lot more mobility, which is what I feel like I'm really getting out of WildStar with the action combat. But with having to stand there and cast the spells, especially like on a healing end, like if I'm doing healing in PvP and everyone else is moving around and I'm standing there standing still, then it just seems I don't know. Maybe when I get my hands on it and I get to play it, then maybe it'll click. But for now, it just seems sort of a little bit more like I'd be leaning towards something a little bit more mobile.
But is that because, and I'm not trying to challenge here, I'm just asking, is that because of the way that you see that they've created or they've made this class? Or is that just because that's not the style of gameplay you like in any MMO?
Well, I mean, like I didn't have a problem with stationary casting in other games like World of Warcraft, where that was more of the norm for a casting game. But like it'd be more like taking a game that's really mobile like Guild Wars 2, and then whenever you did have to stand still to cast something, it just felt like sort of like kind of thing. Again, that was sort of more of a rarity, so maybe that's part of the reason why. I think that it is sort of like an archetype kind of thing, that they wanted to have a more stationary caster, and obviously the stationary spells are going to be more powerful than if you could have cast them while moving. They've said that they work that into their balancing equations or whatever, how they figure out how strong an ability should be. If you can't move while you're casting it, then it'll probably heal for more, do more damage than the mobile equivalent, right? But
well, that's because you have to channel it, right? Or is that the assumption?
Not just about having to channel. Like if you could channel while moving, then or like cast it while moving, then it the same spell, if you had to stand still, would just have, I don't know, like 10, 15, 20% more healing or damage than an equivalent spell that was exactly the same that did let you move while you're casting it, which makes sense. Obviously, if you can't dodge out of a telegraph, you have to interrupt your spell to actually move, then that's something you have to keep in mind when you're playing it. And I think that a lot of players will be more at home with that kind of thing, especially if they're coming from a game that doesn't have as much mobility, and if they're fine with that. And I'm sure that you could probably mix in a few mobile spells into your limited action set so that you don't feel like, okay, everything is going to be stationary. Obviously, that won't be the case. But yeah, it's just playstyle wise, that's my thoughts, and that's a very personal thing. So it's not like there's a right or wrong answer for that.
One thing that I kind of noticed from a lot of the, from the live stream is that, the side blade was kind of seemingly most of the time, it just kind of sits on the Esper's back, not really doing anything. So I get that it's beta.
Yeah.
Beta's beta. But it seems like it'd be something that you'd really kind of want to have changed.
So from playing it, I don't know if you played it at E3, it appears that like whatever side blade that they have, and they're like a bunch of different ones, whatever they have on their back, like when they cast their spell, becomes like a mental whatever manifestation, cool word, of the side blade that they've got on their back. So if they've got like a triangular one, then when they cast the side blade spell, it looks like whatever one that's on their back, but it's like really big and it's like blue or something. and then it spins up and then it takes off. So I think it's probably just not really a prop, but they use that as like, I'm mentally channeling whatever this thing is, and I'm going to hit you with my mind, as opposed to picking it up and actually slinging it at you, right?
Right, they're making a projection of whatever their weapon is and then hurling that at you rather than actually having to be like, I threw my weapon. Run over there and pick it up.
Now I don't have a weapon anymore.
Disarm myself. Damn it. Should have thought that through.
Can you imagine if he had like a gun on his back? Like you'd see like a big gun kind of form, and he's like, all right. Oh, we're derailed.
So
Well,
that's,
no,
I think we're fine. I think we're fine.
That's true for some abilities though. Like that, it would be a projection. There are obviously some of them, like the swingy swords that Mark was talking about, that are just like a set animation. But what they are trying to do is, because of that, like, trying to use the actual weapon asset in the game so that you actually feel like you see it in there, like the same way that a warrior sees their sword swinging. They are trying to have some of the abilities actually have that projection in there. I don't know about healers though. Like, you're not really throwing your weapon at your friends, so I don't know if there's any animations like that would incorporate your weapon. Maybe those would be a little bit more static. I don't know how they do that, if at all.
What about, Farhan, you were talking about how in Guild Wars, when you had to stand still, it just didn't feel natural. I think that a lot of people might say that the Esper's basic ranged nuke requires you to stand still. Do you think that's going to kind of put anybody off here, or?
Well, I mean, it did for me, right? Like that's what put me off. That, and like from the healing standpoint, like the telegraph heal that they showed off in the live stream was a sort of stand there and cast it, and then the other one was, I think, a targeted one. I don't remember if you could move during the targeted one. Maybe you could, but basically, like that put me off a little bit. That, okay, while I'm building up my points, I had to the Esper would have to stand still while they're doing that. Again, I think that's sort of a playstyle thing. Some people will be totally fine with it, and it'll fit into your gameplay. You'd have to like sort of work that in. I imagine the Esper will, like, they showed a pretty cool knockback, AoE knockback that the Esper had. So you work those kind of things into your build so that you could pull them off while you're playing without feeling like, okay, this is really hamstringing you. Obviously,
I can totally respect that, because now that I've been thinking about it, because I was busting your chops earlier, but now that I've been thinking about it, I was thinking about Tor, the commando. There was a DPS spec, in which case you bent over and you basically became a turret, and you would just have to pivot on your axis and shoot rockets. And I was like, I couldn't do that at all, so I had to switch over to Pyro. But
yeah, the assault spec was fun because you could just run around and shoot fire and be really mobile while you were playing. It wasn't quite as good, like as good for actual damage output as the commando spec was. Which again, it's like a balancing thing, but for playstyle wise, it just felt a lot more fun when you could move around. That's the way I feel about the Esper. Again, that is sort of like they said that there are mobile equivalents that you could put in, so you don't have to have your basic builder be the stationary range nuke. You could have the sword swingy thing that is mobile. That's closer range, but there's trade-offs. Maybe if you want to be able to be mobile, then you're gonna have to put yourself in a little bit more danger by coming closer. So that kind of thing.
So what are you guys saying? Based on the playstyle and the theory crafting that you guys are throwing out here, is this a class that you guys think that you're gonna want to play, or is it not your playstyle? Where do you guys stand?
I wouldn't play it as a main, but I definitely will have one as an alt. Just because, like I said, a little bit I played with it, I thought it was kind of fun. Like I said, I was like level 6 or whatever, so I didn't have like anything that was really stationary. So I didn't at that point I didn't feel hamstrung, but I do plan on playing one for sure.
Farhan, what about you?
Sort of depends on the last reveals of the remaining classes and seeing how those play. But right now, I think Esper is actually like in my last place for what I would play.
Ouch.
Was it level 6 whatever?
Yeah. They're in the top 10. I'll give them that.
Oh, yeah,
Nice.
Of course they are. Nice way to try and sneak that one in there. All right, real quick before we move on, I want to tell you guys about a sponsor that we have right here on Gamebreaker, and it's a great sponsor to have. I realized this last night when I've got a television service that lets me stream movies that came out, and I came across The Hobbit. Started watching The Hobbit last night for the first time. I skipped watching it in theaters just because, and got through it all. It was great, loved it, and they left me a third of the way through the book. And now I gotta wait till Christmas to only get the second third of the book. So, if you guys are like me, trying to watch The Hobbit or many other movies, Catching Fire, Hunger Games is another great example of wonderful audiobooks that I just realized that Mark, I think our 4-box is messed up, but great audiobooks that we have here available through audible.com. So like I said, books like The Hobbit are available right now. It'll just take you, and I know 11 hours is a long time, but considering the first Hobbit was 3 hours, pretty sure the second one's going to be 3 hours, and the fourth one will be about probably 3 hours as well. You could have the book read to you, get it its entirety read to you right here and now by going to audible.com. And in The Hobbit, it was such a great book, and I'm so mad that I got left off. So I've actually started listening to The Hobbit myself to just basically finish it, because you know what? I don't want to wait. When I go and see the second third of the movie this Christmas, I'll be completely satisfied knowing that because of audible.com, I got to see the whole entire movie. Another one, like I said, if you guys are into the Hunger Games at all, they actually have the Hunger Games trilogy as well. So if you guys want to catch up on the Hunger Games, which Catching Fire is about to come out, I think shortly, in about at least a couple weeks, maybe a month at the most. You guys can catch up on Catching Fire, which is available right now on audible.com as well. So if you guys head on over to audible.com/Gamebreaker, you can start listening today, because you'll get access by signing up. You'll get access to a free 30 days as well as a free audiobook. So you can even try out The Hobbit or Catching Fire or one of their other video game related books today. Let's get back into this and talk about how the fact that Carbine had another AMA on Reddit, and they were talking kind of about the Esper. But they had a couple interesting points here. So all classes have revive out of combat. Now, tell me what you guys think here. I think that it was nice back. Did we lose Mark? No, we didn't. I'm not sure what happened here.
Can you hear me? Am I there?
You're there. I gotta fix cameras here real quick. So Farhan, I'm gonna throw this to you here real quick. What do you think about the idea of this issue, letting everyone revive out of combat? It seems kind of outdated, because what happens? I remember those raids back in a game I won't mention, but when you were in a raid and you didn't have someone who could revive because your group didn't have one, that sucked.
Yeah, just actually quite recently in said game that I guess I shouldn't mention, but I'm going to talk about it anyway, so maybe, yeah. I've been trying to, my wife is trying to sort of get into gaming a little bit more and sort of seeing the stuff, so one of the things that we were doing in that game is I was two-manning all of the 5-man dungeons as we level up, because the tuning for everything low level in that game, I'm just gonna say it, World of Warcraft, is really, really easy. Your damage, everything is way out of whack. But I thought it'd be a fun thing to do, just to two-man all the 5-man stuff as we level up. So I was playing a warrior, and she was playing a druid, like a DPS druid kind of thing, and we were actually able to do everything up till level 85, which I found really surprising, that we could two-man everything. And she's completely new to MMOs, but hey, World of Warcraft easy. So one thing that was really annoying though would be whenever she would actually manage to die, and then I would be alive, and the warriors are so overpowered at this point when you're leveling up that I would just kill the whole pack, and then I'd be like, okay, run back. She has no idea where to run. Okay, why don't you just go get a snack or something? I'm going to go on your laptop and run you back because you don't know how to run back, and I'm stuck here. So, yeah, being able to revive as any class, I think that it just makes sense now. There's no real reason to limit that besides, okay, a lore reason or whatever, but, yeah, whatever. We're in the future. We can at least pick people up if we've got some time to do it.
Well, and you can come up with tricks that it's basically a warrior has bandages or yeah. I guess there's the defibrillation paddles for what's the class?
Engineers, yeah.
Engineers. So I mean they could come up with reasons why every single person would be able to revive.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if it's out of combat. And am I back good? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I sounding better? Because I think I had my cam mic on, but
it's much better.
Yeah, you sound better.
All right, cool. I don't know why I did that, but long story short, I mean, the cool thing about doing it and having any class do it, if it is out of combat, is to keep the progression and to keep the continuity of your team going forward. And what do I mean by that? Long story short, you get a good group, especially if you're in the world of pugging, not guilds, which is the reason why I went to guilds, is that dreaded moment that somebody in your group dings, or that dreaded moment that somebody dies. If somebody dings, they're like, hold on, I got to go to town. This is back, 10 plus years ago. And that person, probably 50-50 shot of him ever coming back. So now your group's boned. Or somebody dies and you don't have a healer or whatever, you either got to wait. It's a way that after the battle is over, so, assuming you all lived, you res you res the weak, and comes back, and then you get back to it, and you just keep on going. I think it's more of a mechanism not to necessarily try to be for the hardcore, but be just for those people who just want to keep playing. Because think about it, that person is dead, you don't have a healer, you got to wait 5-10 minutes. That's an eternity in an MMO, especially when you're grouping and you're trying to get levels, and it breaks continuity. You want to try to get your group together, keep the group together, and keep the XP flowing so that you can have fun. That just breaks continuity and slows things down, and then people are like, I'm going to go get a drink, or I'm going to go to the bathroom, and then your group breaks. That's the biggest thing. You want to keep people engaged, you want to keep them going, you want to keep them paying for the game to keep moving forward. That's what I think.
Now, they also went on to talk about how they don't have any current plans for a combat res. That seems pretty big. I understand, in the World of Warcraft crowd, it's become kind of almost mandatory. Everybody's like, oh, well, everybody's got a combat res. We need it to raid. But they're kind of coming out here and saying, there currently are no plans for it. So where do you guys stand on this? Are you okay? Do you think it's necessary?
I don't want to jump in and steal your thunder there, Farhan, but
No, go ahead. I was going to throw it back to you anyway, because I know this is a big thing for you.
As a person who raids, that's like what guilds do, right? I mean, PvP is really fun, but that's secondary to raiding. How do you raid if you don't have a res? I mean, it used to be a time when you had unlimited reses, and then they slowed them down to like once every 10 minutes, or one or two per instance, or raid, or whatever. But I'm just trying to say, if you have 0 reses, how do you raid? I mean, it's going to make it be worse than my tirade last week about the whole
in combat reses.
That's right. What I'm talking about. I'm talking about an in-combat res. If you don't have an in-combat res, you might as well have every single raid boss have an enrage timer. It's the same kind of thing, because if somebody dies, like your tank, guess what? You just wiped your raid. I mean, it's a wrap.
Couldn't that go into the hardcore mode of just, you know what? If you're gonna step out of the hardcore doing 40-man raids, guess what? You're also gonna step up, and you better not die.
If they're gonna make that a function of the hardcore raid, I'm fine with it. If they're gonna make that a function of the 40-man raid, okay, I guess I'm fine with it. But I'm just trying to say, like, just for the 20-man default raid, that's kind of ridiculous. I think. I don't think it's a good idea. I do not agree with it. I think. It gets back to what I was saying earlier. If you put this crazy thing on it without just putting a stipulation on it saying, well, this is the hardcore, the nightmare version of your raid, whatever, then what is the point of having a class that can res? You see what I'm trying to say? What is the point of it? I mean, if they build your raid to the point that you can finish it with certain classes being dead, I'm great with it. But that's not normally how raids go. So if your main tank goes down, your raid is foobar, is based on of my experience. Farhan?
Well, so, like, a number of things, I guess, that I would say is that, well, first of all, they're basically saying that there is no, like, one resing class, because everyone can res. So, hey, there's no real, like, combat res in there anyway. Just, like, archetypically, like, lore-wise, or whatever you want to say. When you're in the heat of combat, you just don't have time to pick up people, and that's sort of how they're going with it. Second of all, if you're in like a pretty big raid, like a 40-man raid or something, presumably you're going to have a decent number of tanks in there, so like 4 to 5 tanks or something. Maybe that's just sort of the thing.
The whole raid is tanks.
The whole raid is no.
But you can't say. I get where you're coming from, but you don't like. Even in a 40-man, they're not going to be like, you know what? Let's just have 3 people DPSing in tank gear in case one of our tanks die. You can't say that.
Well, no. But what I'm saying is that, well. Yeah, but basically the way it would work is, okay, like, because obviously when you have a 40-man group, you're not going to just still limit it to 2 tanks, You're going to have more tanks in there, just, like, logistically it would be a pain in the ass if every
But if
time
the
you
fight-
go up.
But if the fight only... Okay, hang on, and I don't want to interrupt too much, but I'm gonna.
Go ahead.
If the tank... I realized I was like, I don't want to interrupt, but I totally just did. If the tank requires only 2 fights, no matter if it's on that 40 level, if the fight only requires 2 tanks, why would the guild in their right mind bring 3 or 4? Would it be smarter for Carbine to build the raid to... No, that won't work. Because if the tank dies, it's different.
Because they said that you can have different builds. So for example, like the warrior, which everybody is thinking of as the default tank, but the stalker can be the tank too, right? So the thing is you could bring a warrior that can make sure that they have their build set to DPS be in the raid, and so they'll be primarily DPSing, but because they've got heavy armor, they'll be more survivable, I'm assuming, than a DPS spec stalker.
I wasn't even going to get into just being a hybrid or something like that, where you have like the ability to just switch stances into tanking stance, and then that improves your armor basically, and you sort of just make do. What I was basically getting at is that, like, let's say you have, I'm assuming that if you're in a 40-man raid, that they're probably not going to design a fight that only requires 2 tanks, just because that would be sort of, I just don't think that they would limit themselves to all the way down to 2, maybe 3, maybe but whatever. Basically, what I'm saying is that, okay, it would be harder, obviously, if you have your main tank die. That's not supposed to be something that you easily transition out of, right? That is supposed to be like a big thing if you lose it. But maybe you could basically have one of your ad tanks sort of take the boss while they're taking the ads, and all the healers now are focusing on one person, and you sort of make do in that respect. Or, maybe you have one ad tank, or you usually have 2 ad tanks. Maybe you have just one dude picking up all the ads instead of, having one main tank and then 2 off tanks who are doing ads or something like that. Basically, what I'm getting at is that you could still recover even if you lost your main tank. It's just probably not going to be very easy.
I mean, I think that, and we're looking at it in the complete wrong perspective. I think that if a tank goes down, that's extreme. If you lose a tank, fight over, reset it, you're probably going to die. But where not having a combat res doesn't matter as much, whereas if they design the fights to be a little bit looser, a DPS dies. Darn. Okay, we don't kill it faster, but it's still possible. A healer dies. Again, darn, but now it's a little bit more stress on the healers that remain in order to, like, kind of what you were saying. I think if a tank dies, though, it's game over. Yes, a combat res helps save you, but it's not necessary for a raiding environment.
So, but the only way that I can think of in my mind that this is going to be possible, and again, ultimately, I'll have to see, and I don't want to cast judgment, but I'll admit I don't understand, right, how it's going to work. But let's just say that if they do go forward with it, then they're going to have to get rid of, in my mind, enrage timers on every single boss. If you have an enrage timer on every single boss, like another space fantasy MMO had a couple years ago, then like as soon as anybody dies, you're screwed. Why? Because the whole purpose of an enrage timer is you're in a DPS race, right? You need the tank to maintain aggro. You need the healers to keep the tank up, but you need the DPS to kill the boss. If a DPSer dies, you're done. Game over. If your tank dies, you're done. Game over. I mean, so I'm just trying to say that they're going to just get to this point where it's diminishing returns and you're just upsetting people. So I'm saying, if they come out with it where there's no in combat reses, then they're going to have to either lighten up or loosen up the restrictions on the enrage timers, I think.
Can I take this from a slightly different standpoint, where basically, my question to you is, if I have an in combat res, even if I have the option, do I really want to have one of my 8 or 9 abilities or whatever be my res, and then I'm not using it like the majority of the time? Wouldn't that hamstring you enough? Like I just feel like maybe they just felt like it doesn't really fit that well when you have to have that limited action set. Unless you're saying that it's something that everyone can do, that you just right click on the person, and it's just an innate thing that you don't really have a button that you push for that kind of thing. I just I feel like maybe with the way that they're going with other stuff in WildStar, maybe that's the reason why you don't have that kind of wipe recovery. And I mean, to be fair, obviously
recovery. You need to patent that, my friend.
obviously, we're talking about like really hardcore raids. If it's going to be like a problem where like, okay, one person dies, you're just done. It's all a matter of tuning. If you have like a dungeon or an adventure or whatever else, and you have someone die, it's just a matter of how tightly tuned it is. That okay, can you still make it with 4 people in a dungeon or something? And we saw that like in the live stream. They had people dying left and right, and they still managed to get the boss down. So. Maybe it's just a matter of tuning, and if they want something to be a little bit more casual of a fight, like the 20-man raids or the dungeons or adventures or whatever, then they could just tune it that way so that you can still get by.
So what does that mean, though? What does that mean relative to what you saw, that they only had like 5 people left out of a raid? What does that mean? Does that mean that they got rid of the enrage timers, or what?
But I think you can design an enrage timer to not be so hard. Like, let's say 3 minutes hard enraged, no one can die. If anyone in your group dies, you're done. It's over. But if they move it to say like 5 minutes, then if you lose a DPS or 2, it's not the end of the world. You can still keep DPSing without those guys up and still make the enrage.
Right. So basically the idea is as long as the fight is tuned so that you would kill it well ahead of what the enrage timer is, it's still just basically at that point the enrage mechanic is just there to prevent you from stacking all healers and tanks and not really worrying about the DPS at all.
Right.
Yeah, and trivializing the count at that point, which I think is something that those other MMOs do sometimes. Like the enrage mechanic isn't always the limiting factor. It's oftentimes it's other stuff. So yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move on. We kind of stayed on this topic for more than I think we meant to, but let's just move on here because back on the rails here, Carbine did say that the Esper is probably the best single target healer, but that was actually quickly and hilariously corrected here. I wouldn't actually go so far to say that they are the best single target healer. Asriel already wishes he didn't say that, winky smiley face. What we can say is that the Esper has a lot of great single target heals, but thanks to our action set, ability tiering system, and the AMP system, all healers will be able to heal a single target really well. PR derp, anyone? Whoops.
That's probably a matter of perspective on how the class is played. Relative to playing, so I'm assuming obviously that dev played a lot, and that's their perspective. So, for example,
so the dev that said that best single target healer is the Esper class designer. So maybe a little bias, maybe.
Bias, maybe. No, but I mean, that's fair though, and I guess where I was going with it is that's a fair statement relative to being a developer or even just being a gamer playing a class. Because most MMOs, you can kind of figure out over time, this is the class that's the single best single person healer, and this is the class that's the best area of effect healer. Whether the developers, think about it, no developer is going to say, well, we've designed it so this is the best single player healer normally. That's why they probably corrected it, and I'm not trying to say that they're lying and they're trying to PR us to death, but let's just be real. We've played MMOs for a long time. Normally, over time, you normally figure out who's the best single-player healer and who's the best AoE healer. Why? Because the best single-player healers are the ones that heal the tank in the fight, and the area effect healers heal the rest of the group. That is the quintessential way that you keep your raid alive, right? That's just the way it normally works.
Do you think that...
So just to clarify a little bit, the first part where the other dev actually said that he was the best single target healer, the question was, are the Esper's heals mostly single target, few target AoEs, group wide, or a mix of those? And his answer was, of all the classes, the Esper is probably the best single target healer, but they also have access to AoEs. So I think the problem there was just sort of like, it makes it sound like they are the best at single target healing, but they can also do AoE healing, and they also got burst healing, and it's just sort of makes them sound like they're all that.
Maybe it's just the one healing class that has the most amount of single target healing, and thus they are the best because they have more tools to single target heal.
So I'm going to go out on a limb right now at 6:43 p.m. Eastern, and November 18th, 2013, and I will bet you, and we'll have to wait till the game comes out or everybody in the world is in beta, that's probably accurate what that person said, unless they go ahead and they retool it and they fix it in beta between now and release. And so what I mean by that is that probably is accurate, and that probably is the best single-player healer, but PR probably bitch slapped them, and they were like, we can't say that because then our game's not balanced and blah, 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 blah. How much you want to bet? I bet you right now. I'm making my line in the same.
It's likely, honestly, that
all of you in chat, I'm counting on all of you.
All right, so while the chat pulls in here, we'll keep an eye on that. But originally, Carbine was kind of planning on giving the Esper a polymorph. But as of right now, it's actually a gadget ability that anyone can get. So by polymorph, I'm assuming, we see this across a lot of different games. You can turn your target into an animal, or basically negate them from a fight for X amount of seconds. Super powerful. They're giving it to everyone. Now, is that the smart idea? Or is that one of those abilities that you feel should be locked behind an iconic playstyle?
Honestly, I think that it fits better as a gadget anyway, just because, aesthetically, so the Esper, all of their attacks are sort of, like mental projections of their attacks, right? They're ESP-er kind of thing. They're mentally attacking you with swords. There aren't real swords. You just feel like you're being stabbed. And which sort of makes me wonder about the healing. Espers have homeopathic healing.
You just feel like you're being healed.
You feel, I'm fine. I can keep going.
You just feel like you're being healed, but you're not.
It's acetaminophen. It higher your pain tolerance so you don't feel it anymore. It's just acetaminophen.
No, I'm okay. I'll be all right.
But
meanwhile, you're on
a
fire.
polymorph, you're changing the target into something else. I don't even know which one that would fit well into out of any of the classes so far that we know, like a spell slinger, like you're shooting them and they're turning into a so I think a gadget that changes something into something else that makes sense. So maybe that's part of the reason why it just doesn't fit. Like everyone just thinks he's an animal. He's like sort of on his all fours mooing or something. It could be hilarious if they did that.
All right, let's move on. So people think that they've kind of figured out some of the beta testing that's going on, and they've figured something out with the beta testing here because there's an NDA in place. I'm not allowed to say whether I'm in the game or my thoughts on playing the game, but
He likes talking about it.
that doesn't mean Redditors can't talk in hypotheticals. The whole, well, if the game does this, I would hypothetically do that. So, Ultra Steve over on Reddit made a thread titled, "Imagine if Carbine did something silly like beta exclusive hoverboard outfits."
Hoverboard slash outfits.
Hoverboard slash
outfits would be actually pretty hilarious.
Hoverboard outfits. Hoverboard slash outfits. You guys wonder where maybe he got that idea from? Because David Bass kind of stepped in to confirm that that in this purely hypothetical situation, in this alternate universe that's not reality, any kind of costume or hoverboard would be acquired in a different way in the released game. Wasn't Carbine nice? They're commenting on hypothetical situations. Who does that?
Well, how many times have we said that these guys can't keep a secret to save their life?
It's tough. It's tough.
Man, they're like, hey, whatever. And I think they had to say something after that amazing video, what was last week or 2 weeks ago, that showed, what was it, the Aran that was boogie boarding on his little surfboard all around and doing like tricks and stuff. And I think after that, something had to be said. So, hey. But I hypothetically can't talk about that.
Yeah, but so I think what the concern was that if they were giving out a hoverboard, then is that something that only beta testers get, which would suddenly sort of put a huge damper on that huge reveal of like, oh, we got awesome hoverboards or something, if only beta testers can actually play with them, then that's yeah, I'm not really cool with that kind of thing. Like that is the kind of thing that should be open to everyone, and that's what they're saying basically, that everyone would be able to earn these whatever their rewards are actually in the game, and I think that makes sense anyway, just from and could you imagine them like working on the physics and everything for the hoverboard and getting in the game art assets and all? And they're like, no, we're only going to give it to beta testers. Like, no, they're not going to do that.
They have to give it to beta testers because they got to make sure that the hoverboards work, right? I mean,
but I mean, like, about giving it to them post-launch.
What do you mean?
Not only giving them to beta testers.
Hypothetical. Yeah, I thought that the hypothetical was that people who had beta tested would get these things post-launch. And so, like, if it was only for beta testers, then yeah, that's sort of messed up, and obviously it's not what they were intending to do.
But doesn't that seem like a fair assumption? Like, they tested it, so shouldn't they get it? I mean, that's fair, right?
I mean, like, what? So I tested the Esper class. Why should anyone else get the Esper class? I tested it.
Exactly.
But why not?
Only
Why not?
Farhan.
Why not?
Only
Why not come up
Farhan
with
can play.
what's wrong? I agree, but I at the same time disagree. What's wrong with giving something special to beta testers? And I think that maybe it should even go as far as not being all beta testers, because a lot of people look at beta testing as early playing. But come up with an item that if you participate in the beta, if you help make the game more stable for launch, why not give them a special item as a way to say thank you? Thank you for playing our game. Thank you for making it better. And you know what? Everybody else isn't going to get the item because they didn't help. And granted, maybe it's because they didn't have access, but
they wanted to.
but to your point, in all sincerity, I mean, a lot of MMOs will give you X, Y, or Z for beta testing to show the public that you were a beta tester. If you're actually doing the job of trying to test the game, there's nothing wrong with rewarding people for their time and effort. Yes, depending on the game, some people are just, they're walking through the mall and they're just, window shopping and they just want to play the game. But even then, that's still cool. It's some kind of way to reward folks for making the cut, being lucky, right? Or actually being a known quantity and getting invited to beta. Because, let's not forget, there are a number of groups of people who get hand-selected to go beta test this game.
Let's not forget, I'm Mark Taylor, and I can't say I'm in the beta, but I'm Mark Taylor.
I may or may not have hoverboarded, but what I'm trying to say is that, it's some kind of way to reward the folks for taking the time to play your game, to check it out. And even if, they're window shopping, the point is at the very minimum, let's just say you got hundreds of thousands of people who play a game who are not even reporting one bug. They're stress testing it. So they're beta testing whether they know it or not. They're stress testing it. They're going to different areas. They're crossing zones. They're changing boundaries. They're doing things that will break your game and that are going to test out some of the most expansive things, such as, am I going to, be able to handle the load of 1 billion people trying to log on at once? Is this zone going to be able to handle enough players? Things like that. So you got to kind of reward the folks that are trying to beta test, because remember, on average, beta testing is usually not very fun. People think, oh, I got really early access to this game. A lot of times the game's broken, you're getting kicked out of the server, stuff doesn't work, you don't get your loot. So yeah, you're trying to play, you're trying to have an enjoyable experience, but you're finding bugs, you're finding out what's wrong with the game, and if you're serious about it, you're trying to help them make it better.
9 times out of 10, they delete your character, and all that work and time you spent is gone, so it sucks.
And you got to do it over and over and over again. So, I mean, that's the reason why, there are you see the same people in betas a lot of times. If you do a lot of betas, you will see the same guilds, you will see the same groups, you will see the same personalities over and over and over within betas. Why? Because it's a job, and you're helping make the game better. So if they're going to give people hoverboards or sky boots or whatever the heck they're going to give people, good on them. That's a way to congratulate them. And hopefully everybody in chat will get into beta.
Well,
Let us
I mean,
go ahead, Moran.
just to say one last thing on this purely hypothetical thing. Anyway, I don't know why we're even talking about this, but hey, if Carbine is, then we might as well.
Yeah, it's hypothetical. We can talk about it.
They've already at least said, that they are gonna have it earnable in game, and I think that's fine. Okay, like make it easier. Find like give stuff to the beta testers if you want to incentivize them to actually log in consistently and actually get some testing done. If that's what they feel like they need to do, then fine. Like give an incentive so that they actually get it in. I just think that having stuff that's purely only for beta testers that you can't earn in some other way in the game is like I don't see that as being like a necessary incentive. I think that just giving them access to it in an easier way is enough incentive without having to take that away from anyone who couldn't get into beta.
Let us have a modicum of common sense and what I unpack. No, I'm not drunk, dumbass. But let us have a modicum of common sense. What game have you ever seen people beta test where they get given something that is not capable of being earned in the game? Think. What game, what MMO were you able to either earn something and buy it on the cash shop or earn it through just leveling that was not able to be gotten through the game? I don't think of any MMO. And if there was, then that's the one that people complain about through cash shops, right? So
right. Well, again, purely hypothetical situation. They're wondering about what could happen, not necessarily what is likely to.
And I'm betting right now that I guarantee you from moment one, they would have never shown a dude sitting there surfing on a hoverboard if that was something that could not be gained in-game. They would have never teased you because they would have never teased you with something that only the beta testers, which we're not supposed to be talking about, could get. Think about that.
But we're only talking hypothetically, so it's okay. It's just
hypothetically.
If they wanted to kind of scenario.
Yeah. And hypothetically, I doubt that they would ever do that. Hypothetically, I doubt that they would ever create something that only beta testers could get. The only thing that I think that beta testers have ever gotten in any game that I know of that no one could get was a title, right?
Titles.
Was it PlanetSide 2? You got beta tester as your title. Okay. Shocking, only those guys would get that title, Come on.
All right, let's move on. But before we do, I got to tell you about another sponsor that we have right here on Gamebreaker. A great service, one that I'm actually really pleased to announce has a great new show available. I started watching Netflix years ago when I made my account, and Netflix was the reason I got into the Showtime show Dexter. It had a lot of great, it's just a wonderful drama, especially in the early seasons. Not so much the later seasons, but...
I just started watching that on Netflix. You just ruined it for me.
The later seasons are not worth it at all. But the early seasons, honest to God, no. But don't worry about it.
Show.
Here's the thing. Dexter is available once again on Netflix. And despite what I just said, you don't have to worry about it. Why? Because they only have seasons 1 through 4. They've got the good seasons. You don't have to watch after season 4. So you can get all the good stuff out of watching Dexter on Netflix right now if you head on over to netflix.com/GamebreakerTV. It's great. I swear to God, guys. Dexter's one of those shows that a lot of people have been talking about. It took me a while to get into, but I promise it is well worth your time if you haven't watched any of Dexter at all. It's available now right on Netflix, and it's well worth the time. It's a great show, a great drama. That just kind of goes off the rails towards the end. But as I said, you know what? You got 4 really good seasons, and it stops just before it gets bad. So watch it all on Netflix.
Thank you, Netflix.
You don't have to go anywhere. Netflix knew. Netflix was like, you know what? The good seasons were season 1 through 4. That's where we're going to cut it off. We're going to save everyone else the embarrassment. And we're going to make sure that everyone loves Dexter on Netflix. That's exactly what Netflix did. So head on over to netflix.com/GamebreakerTV, and you can sign up for a free 30-day trial of Netflix and get started to watch awesome shows like Dexter, Lost, just a whole bunch of really awesome television shows. And that's it's honestly the best way to watch television. I hate commercials. I hate waiting. Week to week. What a great way to just sit there and veg out on an entire first season by heading over to Netflix. So check it out, netflix.com/GamebreakerTV. All right, we have got to move on. We are running out of time, but we have one more topic to get to. We got our first look at the Exile capital city. Midgard,
Some-
right? This is
Some-
called Midgard.
Some fail place that like Arrowwolf or like Lethality or some of those
Fade,
fail
I believe. It said Fade, correct?
I think it's fail. I think it's pronounced fail.
Oh.
Fail.
All right. I mean, this might be a look at kind of a beta leak. It looks very low res, poor textured. It kind of looks like a leak. But it's actually from a Carbine video.
Can you put a target on that? Whatever the heck that is.
Target on what?
A target reticle pattern?
Hating on the Exiles a little bit.
Yeah. We need to put a reticle pattern on that. Like whatever, if it's Exile, it dies. Sorry.
So first impressions here. This came from a Carbine Vine video. What do you guys think?
Oh, so first of all, the quality is because it's one of Frost's many sneak attacks. So it's sort of like the ship hands one that we got the other week. And so, yeah, it's supposed to be, it is a leak. It's just from the amazing Mr. Frost saving us from having to be bored throughout the week. He just gives us a little bit of detail so that we can just sort of salivate over it.
Salivate?
Salivate?
I said salivate afterward, but yeah. So anyway, first impressions. Yeah, it's very Exile. It's run down. It's
Exile, fail is thy name.
no, but it does look cool, and I did actually get like the same vibe that you did from it first, like the whole like it's sort of like Midgard. It's like the slums in Midgard. Yeah. That's what I got from it too. I was like,
I loaded this picture, and I was like, I didn't realize there was someone standing in the bottom. I was like, wait, is this Midgard? Is this Final Fantasy VII? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, but yeah, so there you go. The Exile capital city is the equivalent of a Final Fantasy slum. So
Damn.
Can you imagine the Dominion City being kind of a lot more grandiose and clean to kind of contrast this?
almost assuredly, yeah. They're not going to have the duct tape together everything.
They wouldn't handle the Dominion. The great and glorious Dominion would not accept nor tolerate any Arrow, Wolf, Zap, Robo, Lethality, Exile nonsense like that. No.
Do we even know for sure if there's going to be capital cities? I mean, we've just gotten to the Nexus. They are going to include capital cities?
So I actually think that this might be one of the places where the Exiles actually have a little bit of an advantage, just because they have no qualms just throwing everything together. So their capital city might actually end up being like a little bit cooler, just because it's everything there. Lore-wise, it wouldn't make sense for the Dominion to have like this really like nicely set up, extravagant capital city. So yeah, I mean, it might end up being a little bit cooler on the Exile side, just because there's a lot more stuff thrown in there, just because that's what they do, right? They just sort of bring in stuff and they put it together and they live in it. So.
What do you think here? We saw this. We've seen other gaming companies do this with capital cities. Do you guys think that we'll see maybe city tour videos that kind of do fly-throughs and show us how awesome their cityscapes look, or how
I wouldn't
crappy?
be surprised if that's a live stream. If they just show off the two capital cities and they sort of show off the aesthetic and how they go and everything. I think that'd be a pretty cool stream to show off maybe some of the key characters, if they have I don't know, like, would the Emperor actually be down in the Dominion capital city, wherever that ends up being, or how would that work? So.
Hey, Mike Schaffner, what if we petitioned to Carbine to see if that'd be something that we could do as a reveal? If it's not something that they live stream or they do themselves, maybe Gamebreaker TV could try to do that.
We could see. Chat room would love it. I'm sure viewers
Wouldn't
at
that
home
be
would love
kinda
it.
cool?
Maybe we could get some exclusive city fly-throughs to show for you guys. Who knows?
Maybe you could talk to Michael Schelling and try to see if we could work it up.
Maybe we'll find out. I know there's going to be some opportunities coming up here in the future, so keep it locked right here. That's all I'm going to say. Mark Taylor, you can follow him right down there at Guild Umbra. Be sure to catch him each and every week right here on UDSP.
Gamebreaker Nation, make the circle on your server.
Farhan Siddiqui, you can follow him right down there at Unindel. My apologies, at Unindel. I always get people's names and their Twitters mixed up.
I should just name myself Unindel and put.
There you go. Legal name change right there. Go take it before someone else beats it to it. You guys can follow me right down here at Mike Shafton. Be sure to follow all that we do here at Gamebreaker TV, as well as all of the WildStar coverage that we have. If WildStar is not your thing, well, you guys made it through a whole hour of the show. Thanks for watching. But if you guys want more, or want to stay up to date on other MMOs, we actually also cover all of that news right here on Gamebreaker TV as well. So be sure to check around the site and watch all of the content that we have to offer right here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow us at Gamebreaker TV on Twitter. We'll see you guys next week.
Gamebreaker Nation.